You have enough now if you want to get started, Mr. Chair.
Great. Well, let's get started. Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Neil Albert. I'm the chairman of the Board of Commissioners. I'm calling for a meeting to order. This is the regular monthly meeting of the District of Columbia Housing Authority being held today, October 13th, 2021. This meeting is being held via WebEx video conferencing, and the time is 1:02 p.m. If you are not speaking, please ensure that you place your devices on mute. And I know everyone does that well every month. So I just want to reiterate that. Generally, this time we take a moment of silence. Today, we are going to do that, or we're going to do that in honor of one of the true stalwarts of public housing in DC, who we lost a few weeks ago, Deborah Frazier. And so my colleague Ann Hoffman, on behalf of the Board of Commissioners, will use this time to pay tribute to Deborah. Ann, I'm turning the meeting over to you.
Thank you, Neil. Deborah Frazier lived a life dedicated to fighting injustice. A native Washingtonian, Ms. Frazier grew up in Northeast DC, close to RFK Stadium. She received her bachelor's degree in psychology from Howard University and a master's in demography from Georgetown University. She spent much of her life advocating around housing and health issues and in general fighting to end poverty. Since 2008, she served as a board member of the Near Southeast Southwest Community Benefits Coordinating Council. Ms. Frazier moved into the Arthur Capper Carrollsburg dwellings in the early 1990s. In the early 2000s, when her property was identified for a federal Hope 6 redevelopment, Ms. Frazier, along with her neighbors, led a valiant fight to ensure that their rights were protected, that the promised one-for-one replacement of public housing units occurred, and that everyone had the right to return. Ms. Frazier was a central figure in the organizing efforts at the Cappers, as it was known, and she was the focus of a play developed by Anu Yadav called Cappers to help bring attention and support to the organizing efforts happening there. Ms. Frazier was also featured in the documentary Chocolate City by Ellie Walton and Sam Wilde, which told the story of the fight back at Cappers and the gentrification that was happening in DC. Deborah would continue her advocacy for and with public housing residents, and as a voucher holder. She became very involved around advocacy for voucher holders as well. She was a mainstay at the monthly Board of Commissioners meetings and made it her business to speak on whatever was happening with the Housing Authority. She would speak on nearly all the agenda items at each meeting and would famously say after asking her probing questions, "I'll wait for an answer." Her last appearance was at the last board meeting, less than 2 weeks before she passed. She's survived by Siddiqui Lancaster, her son Aja Frazier Lancaster, daughter Kiora Frazier Lancaster, 4 grandchildren, 5 grandchildren. And here were words she said in the Chocolate City documentary. "When Dorothy clicks those red ruby shoes and says there's no place like home, yo, Dorothy, I know what you're talking about, because wherever I'm at or wherever I return, it's my town, it's my city, and they're not running me out." Deborah Frazier, you are missed.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Hoffman, for paying tribute to Deborah Frazier. If you can just indulge me for 1 minute, I think the phrase that I'm going to remember her by was the one that she made at our last board meeting. You go ahead and try to be boss. So I'm going to go ahead and try to be boss for this meeting and for upcoming board meetings, but she will certainly be missed. At this time, I'm going to ask our secretary to determine a quorum for our meeting.
Thank you. Commissioner Council,
Present.
Commissioner Strickland, Commissioner Hoffman,
Here.
Commissioner Slover,
Present.
Commissioner Falchecchio,
Present.
Commissioner Bussey Reeder,
Present.
Commissioner Ortiz Goud, Commissioner Van Gostry, Commissioner Talaferro, Chairman Albert.
Present.
Chairman, you have 6 commissioners present. You have a quorum.
Thank you so much. So the next item on our agenda is the approval of 2 sets of minutes, the minutes of the September 8th, 2021 Board of Commissioners meeting and the September 17th Board of Commissioners emergency meeting. Both of the minutes have been updated to your board books. At this time, I would entertain a motion to approve the meeting minutes.
I'll make a motion that we accept both last 2 months' meetings.
So moved. Is there a second?
A second.
Second. All those in favor of approval, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The minutes are approved. Today we have 2 resolutions to bring before the Board of Commissioners and the public. The first resolution is Resolution 21. Oh, I moved ahead. Sorry. Next on our agenda is our Executive Director's report. Madam Executive Director, I don't want to overlook you, so I'm going to defer to you this time.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm actually deferring back to you. I wasn't prepared for a report at the board meeting. I thought the brown bag was the report.
Great, no problem. It's on our standard agenda, so anytime you want to use it, feel free to do so. So as I was mentioning earlier, there are 2 resolutions. Resolution 21-18, which will authorize the Executive Director to enter into a memorandum of understanding for the demolition and infrastructure financing for Park Morton, and then Resolution 21-19, which will accept the final audit for fiscal year 2020. It is our custom to have anyone who is interested in testifying or bringing testimony about the resolutions, the opportunity to do so. At this time, we're going to do that. So I'm going to call in this order folks who want to speak on the resolution, and there are 5 people that signed up to speak on Resolution 21-18, starting with William Jordan. Mr. Jordan, you have 5 minutes.
Good afternoon, board. The Park Morton Equity Team urges the DCHA Board of Directors to reject Resolution 21-18. The resolution is fundamentally flawed, harming equity rights for Park Morton residents, and violates reasonable common sense. The Park Morton Equity Team was created by the Park Morton Resident Council, Shante High President, and urges the DCHA Board of Commissioners to reject 21-18 by tabling it and instead adopt the draft resolution presented by the Resident Council of Park Morton, calling for Park Morton residents to have become equity owners and part of the development team, and calling for the director to implement the Park Morton Equity Plan. There are many problems with this resolution. First, it will not result in the production of any new housing for close to 3 years, but further harms Park Morton residents with no guarantees. The DNPEG grant to DCHA to a loan to the development team seems to be designed to skirt DC procurement laws. The shift to make phase 1 on-site currently runs afoul of the approved PUDs 1611 and 1612, which DNPEG funding must comply. This amounts to a kind of a form of money laundering. The PUD 1611 which has been remanded and vacated and no longer applies. And there's a zoning hearing on the 19th to discuss that particular PUD. The resolution is misleading in its proffers. The development team defaulted, as far as we're concerned, on the 2014 award. It's kind of shaky to even pretend that that still exists. The zoning approval has been vacated. The shift doesn't conform. The execution of the demo dispo approval violated Bill First in itself. The June 17th demo dispo ignored the resident opportunity to purchase in case of proposed demolition request that the resident council made. There is no Section 3 or employment training agreement between the resident council and the developers. There's no forcible written commitment to affordable home ownership. At best, an option in 5 years. There's no housing produced. The residents should be entitled to at least 30% of that money. The development team entity and the demo disposition entity are two different entities. So I don't even know how that works. And the addition of vacate notices, in particular to Ms. High, basically while we're in discussions with the housing authority to try to get the equity plan implemented, is just not good faith negotiations. And then finally, we urge the board not to approve this. It violates the city's and the agency's commitment to racial equity and likely runs afoul of DC Human Rights Act for Park Morton residents because they are a protected class and it restricts how many residents can move back. So vote no and get this right. Thank you.
Thank you, William. And I was reminded that the non-residents have 3 minutes, and you finished just in time. Next up is Danielle Del Plago. I don't see Daniel on the screen.
Hello,
Hey, Daniel, go right ahead.
good afternoon, everyone. My name is Daniel DePilago. I work with Empower DC. I've been working with the residents at Park Morton for several years now. And I guess my concern with this is I was looking through resolutions for Berry Farm, another New Communities Initiative project, where these very same resolutions have come up, they've been approved, the money has been spent, but the residents at Berry Farm are still in the wind, as it were. They're still all over the city. Very few can expect to return anytime soon to a senior building, and the rest have no idea. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, recently we were told, or residents were told, that the money is not there to complete the full Berry Farm redevelopment. I'm concerned that we continue to do the same things. This board continues to approve resolutions that don't yield beneficial results for residents. In 2019, if I'm not mistaken, Resolution 1939 was very similar to this resolution that's being voted on now for Berry Farm, and still no residents have returned or can expect when to return. At Park Morton, this is all being done for a redevelopment that will yield less than half of the units that currently exist on that footprint. So I would urge this board, as my daughter's bugging out, hold on one second, please stop. I would urge this board, as Mr. William Jordan said, to table this and include the Park Morton equity plan. So residents at the very least are truly involved and can benefit at some point from this redevelopment. So I urge this board to let's look at what you've been doing and what it's yielded, and let's not essentially commit the same errors again. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much. Next is Ms. Shanta High, and Shanta, you do have 5 minutes. Is Ms. High on?
Thank you. Thank you, board. In a world where there is a $220 billion wage gap between Black and white Americans and a $1.6 trillion revenue gap for small Black-owned businesses in America, reported by MSNBC on August 16th, 2021, you would think there would be more investments in small Black-owned, disabled, Section 3, low-income, woman-owned businesses happening in this city, but there isn't, unless you know somebody that got a hookup. It seems that it quote unquote pays to be in the right networks, or the boyfriend or girlfriend, best buddy or colleague with the right people. The old saying, it's not what you know or it's who you know, is a real thing. This city has shown that and I hate to say this, but this city has shown that the dirt gets dug up from the deepest of the graves. And that is why I want that this to be tabled, to be rejected. Please, board, reject resolution 2118 for now. Fully adopt this Park Morton Equity Plan in its entirety to allow Park Morton residents to have an equity stake in the Park Morton redevelopment. How are we ever going to close this wage gap and revenue gap without an equity stake in our community to assist us in our advancement? Fully adopt the Park Morton Equity Plan today. The DC Committee of 100 sees the vision, and in it, and is awarding myself and my equity fellow teammate the Vision Award for this. So understand the meaning behind this and get with it now. And I thank you for your time. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Ms. High. Next is Scott Brown. Scott, you have 3 minutes.
Hi, everyone. My name is Scott Brown. I live on Park Road Northwest, just about a block away from Park Morton, and I've been working with the Park Morton team for the past year and a half. I'm here to echo the calls to table this resolution until the Park Morton Equity Plan is fully adopted. Just a few things to bring up here. One is, back in February, we brought 11 people to testify at this meeting in favor of full support for the Park Morton Equity Plan. After that meeting, we received an outreach from Commissioner Albert and other board members who were supportive, and we began meeting with Director Garrett, former Director Garrett, and some board members to talk about the demands of the Park Morton Equity Plan. Throughout the months after that, we met for about 6 months or so. We discussed equity, we discussed homeownership for residents, we discussed a vision where Park Morton could actually be a model for not only this city, but for the entire country, in actually making sure that Black residents in DC are getting the equity that they deserve to build financial independence and a stronger community for this entire city. We received a lot of support from the board members. People were excited about these demands, excited about the vision, excited to collaborate, and they said they would help us do what we needed to do to make it happen. Since then, we've made some progress, but when new director Donaldson was appointed, these conversations almost completely ceased. The entire staff was cleared house. Our point person, Vandelli McQueen, was fired. General Counsel Greg Mays has left. And so they were helping us establish a resident management corporation to move equity demands forward and move other demands forward that we have. And now we have no point of contact. We haven't been meeting. And meanwhile, everyone seems fine with just moving this project forward as if all of these conversations never even happened. So we believe that in order for this project to move forward in an ethical way that actually centers residents and the claims that you have around actually believing that residents matter, we need to see in writing the Park Morton Equity Plan being adopted as soon as possible. And any movement forward without that happening means that you're ignoring residents in favor of advancing development. And that's the opposite of the values of the New Communities Initiative that this project was established as a part of. And so for us, we believe that equity for Park Martin residents needs to be front and center here if we really want this project to be as visionary as it started out to be. We really need for Director Donaldson and the DCHA board to facilitate conversations to set up conversations between residents and the Park for You community partner to talk about integrating resident equity into this project as soon as possible. And we need help to finalize this resident management corporation, which was on the verge of being finalized before General Counsel Mays was fired. So we need all of this. We need the equity plan to be adopted, and we need there to be open communication and for residents to be centered in this project, not development and the vision of the mayor and the goals, the political goals of whoever happens to be in office at a particular time. So that's all I have to say. I hope that you'll take the residents' voices seriously and the voices of the community seriously. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Scott. Next up is Samantha Lee.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me?
We could hear you, yes.
Thank you. My phone is on 2%, so I may have to switch over back to Scott's phone. Just a warning. But as a neighbor just down the street from Park Morton, I'm here in support and solidarity with the resident council, as with the others that you've just heard, asking you to table the resolution and put in writing an agreement around the demands for resident equity, and basically halt this proposed MOU for $14.8 million for the demolition and infrastructure financing for the redevelopment of Park Morton. To move forward the redevelopment, even though you have come to no agreement about the Park Morton equity plan, is unacceptable. As you know, the residents at Park Morton, the people who know their community best and have the lived experience of the failures and false promises of the new community initiative for more than a decade, developed their own equity plan, which is amazing. To add insult to injury, I think what you've heard from others and what I'm saying is that neighbors like me are sitting with a pattern, and with the most recent fact being that DC misspent $81.7 million from the Housing Production Trust Fund meant to provide homes to the city's poorest families, which is a fact based on the last Office of the Inspector General audit. Actions speak louder than words here, and left and right, the thing that we're hearing, the message we're hearing is that real estate developers and wealthier residents matter more than Black and Brown, low income, Native Washingtonian, and public housing residents. And this pattern of advancing development at any cost to the lives of those most impacted by said development is the opposite of the supposed values of the New Communities Initiative. The Park Morton Equity Plan demands that you give residents an equity position in the project, which, as you've heard, means being formally integrated into the development deal as a financial and decision-making partner. It also looks like ensuring greater opportunities for residents to own their homes and cooperatively manage their homes themselves. And sadly, I think we have good reason to fear that things might get lost in the cracks with DCHA. Please don't continue to let the equity plan get sidelined, watered down, or even get lost in the process of moving this project forward. Please adopt the plan now before development has really begun, and take the following immediate steps, which I'm going to reiterate. That the DCH board and Director Donald should facilitate a conversation within the next month between the Park Morton Resident Council and Parkview community partners to talk about integrating resident equity into the plan, and also to help the council at Park Morton finalize their resident management corporation, a process that DCHA started but has since failed to communicate about and designate new staff to support. And that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next up is Allison Fisher.
Hello. I want to thank the Commission for allowing me to speak today on Resolution 2118. And I live at Georgia and Harvard, so just a few blocks away from Park Morton and 1 block away from the former proposed first build site. And I'm here to echo the voices of my neighbors, Park Morton residents and the Residents Council, and their demands to formally, for the board to formally adopt in writing the Park Morton Equity Plan, and that the residents are integrated into the development deal as a partner who has an equity stake in the project and a seat at the decision-making table. As we all know, they've been waiting far too long for this, since 2017, and promised by the New Communities Initiative. During that time, affordable housing has dramatically decreased within the district, and y'all have an opportunity as commissioners on this board to really make sure that everybody's right to a home and housing can actually happen. Our neighbors at Park Martin deserve your dignity and respect, and you can help make this happen. And we know that stable housing leads to children doing better in school, parents having a consistent commute to work, and overall reduce in stress and financial stress for households. You have an opportunity to bring more equity to my neighbors. They've been promised so much by the New Communities Initiative, and so much has failed. You have the opportunity to make sure Park Morgan residents have the opportunity for home ownership and for co-ops. And we know that home ownership is one of the important ways for low-income and BIPOC communities to build wealth and move up the economic ladder. And I ask that, just echoing what others have said, I ask you that you table the resolution, and specifically ask that DCHA Director Donaldson and the board facilitate a conversation as soon as possible with the Park Morgan Residents Council and the Parkview Community Partners about integrating resident equity into the plan, and that y'all also help to finalize the Resident Management Corporation. Thank you so much. Appreciate you hearing this, and I hope that you do the right thing.
Thank you so much, Allison, and thanks to everyone who testified on the resolution. Director Donald was listening, and so I'm pretty sure she will respond. So let's go straight into the resolutions. Again, Resolution 2118. I'm going to turn it over to our Executive Director to just give a broad overview of the goals of this resolution before we open it up for a conversation among the board members and a vote.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. The purpose of this resolution is very specific. It is to allow me as the Executive Director to enter into a memorandum of understanding with the Office of the Deputy Mayor for Economic Development to receive $14.8 million for funding for phase 1 of the Park Morton project, which is for the infrastructure, which Mr. Gould will go into more detail if necessary. I heard the comments, of course, and I want to make a couple of points. One is that we have had numerous meetings with representatives of the Park Morton team, the resident council, and 1 or 2 others who are part of what I understand to be the Park Morton equity team. And we have tried to narrow the gap between what they have proposed in multiple and often conflicting proposals and what has been approved in the PUD. That certainly is a process that involves resident and citizen participation, and was actually built into the Budget Support Act of this year, that should go forward now that there's new life at Park Morton to move forward on this long outstanding initiative or development. The 2 big issues that we understood have been about home ownership and about the equity in terms of a management company. Let me state that those 2 issues are still on the table, and but those would come into the second phase of the plan. Park Morton cannot move forward without this critical infrastructure work, and that's just how a project has to develop. You've got to do the infrastructure work first. Those conversations about home ownership, equity in terms of the management services, again, are still on the table. So I am urging the board to focus on this resolution, which is the receiving the allowing me to enter into MOU to receive $14.8 million so that we can move forward on phase 1, and that we will continue those conversations around the equity positions that the Park Morton equity team has put forward. I will also say there have been other meetings, community meetings with other residents who have now moved off of Park Morton, as everyone knows, this long process, and residents have been relocated, but they are still part of the Park Morton community who are allowed to return. And they do have a voice in this as well. And they have been part of several community meetings that my team and I participated in. So again, I urge the board to approve this resolution so that we can move this project forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Andre, anything to add?
No, I think the director summed up everything very well. Only thing I would add is that the PUD for Park Morton has not been vacated. We are following the guidelines of that PUD as far as what was proposed to be built. That's part of our plans, and that's part of drawings that have been submitted to DCRA to begin the permitting process. So with the money that we'll receive from DMPED, we can begin with abatement, demolition, and infrastructure work to allow phase one redevelopment at Park Morton to begin.
Great. Well, thank you. So I'm going to go around and ask and see what questions our commissioners have before vote. Let me start with Commissioner Hoffman. And I think you're on mute.
Nothing at this time.
Great. Commissioner Slover.
Can you come back to me? I'm not ready.
Commissioner Bussy Reader.
Yes, I have a question. I put the executive director, Brenda, I think what I'm hearing from the residents is that there's a fear if this resolution is approved, some of their equity concerns, which I really agree with many of them, will not be addressed. What guarantee can we provide the residents that we will possibly have some of these equity items that they feel are important included in the development phase? Is there any way we can give them any assurance that that will occur if this resolution is approved for you to begin the first infrastructure stage?
Right. Well, I would say, and others have obviously been involved in this discussion much longer than I have, but that that the equity proposals have changed a bit, and so that I looked for when a couple of months ago, and when I met with that group and asked them for a copy of the plan, and they put forth a set of proposals and that we looked at and did a side-by-side comparison with the PUD plans and the plans for moving forward that have been agreed upon. And again, what we were able to understand were there were basically two issues, and those are still in discussion. I mean, there are lots of other elements that are involved in making those decisions, whether the home ownership is co-op was something that was introduced later into the discussion, which is, I understand it, a very complicated financing scheme. So that's something that's to be discussed with the developer. There's still some discussions about what happens with the Bruce Monroe site. So there's some variables that are still not settled. So I think that's why I said the discussions are still ongoing. But to put to stop progress before it starts, when we're just ready to put, really start moving on that first phase of the infrastructure, does nothing. Is it? I mean, unless that's kind of, this is being kind of held hostage. This is whatever happens at before any home ownership or that second phase, you have to do the infrastructure work. And I do believe there's also a sunsetting of the funding opportunity, and I may be wrong about that, but someone else can correct me if I am, in terms of when we have to receive these funds and if they are, or whether or not they lapse.
I hear you, Brenda. And I think my concern, I'm looking at what the actual president is saying in the chat. She's being really clear that no one is speaking with her. She hasn't had any conversation. So I guess I'm concerned with how we're moving the process forward. What I do understand, we don't want to stalemate. You said you had multiple meetings.
Yes, I'm sorry,
Okay.
that is not
Okay.
correct. And there have been some
Okay.
refusal to meet as well.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll stop there. Thank you.
So, but Brenda, I just want to be clear, just based on the questions that Dion asked, that you are not averse to continuing those conversations as you have had in the past. That's just a yes or no answer.
I'm not averse at all. No, again, the discussions, and there are others involved in the discussion, including the developer, and some others as well, about this, about the home ownership and what that would look like in that next phase. So I'm not opposed at all. And the discussions about the management company, I wasn't made aware of those. There have been discussions with the previous general counsel, but when I was made aware of them, and conceptually, they sound, very doable. So they still have some things to be worked out. But no, there's no shutting down. That's why I said the big items, as I understand them, are still on the table and still open to try to work through.
Okay, great. Thank you. Let's move along. Commissioner Strickland, any questions or comments?
No, mine's just the same as Commissioner Bussey Reeder, just understanding that if these are 2 or 3 areas of contention between both sides, that there has to be some way to come to some sort of agreement. And I appreciate you, Director Donald, for making sure that door is open so they can have this communication. Because what we don't want is, I mean, as long as I've been on the board, I've been hearing about this equity plan. And I know that the chairman and the past director have been meeting about it. But I just want to make sure that if there are concerns out there and we can work through it, I think it's a great opportunity. And I also know that the fabric of that neighborhood is changing so rapidly. So in order to make sure we see people of color still living in that neighborhood, that we have to come up with some idea, especially we have the leverage of owning of the property itself. So I am encouraged by what I hear. I know we have to move forward with the MOU to get this money transferred. And I am in support of that, but not we just got to keep the communication going between the two.
Thank you. Commissioner Jose Ortiz, any questions or comments from you?
Not this time, thank you.
Great. Let me get back to Commissioner Slover.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And I have some comments and then a couple questions. So, in listening to all the presentations leading up to this resolution, I ended up saying, which goes, you need to navigate from where you are, not where you wish you were. Sometimes it's important to sort of go back and look at how you got to where you are, to understand where you are. So the history of this deal is long. In July of 2010, DCHA board approved Resolution 1019 to award 27 ACC units to the Avenue project. It was being built by Park Morton Development Partners that had been awarded the right to redevelop Park Morton in October of 2009. That was 12 years ago. In February of 2014, DEMPED terminated that relationship. And in their letter, it read partly, the district has determined that the reasonable time frame for progress, negotiation, and achievement of redevelopment objectives has expired. The letter goes on to say, at this point, it has become clear to the district the development of the property in accordance with objectives and timeframes discussed has not and will not likely occur. Then Deputy Mayor went on to terminate that relationship. In February of 2014, in November of 2014, DCHA picked a new developer, Parkview Community Builders, which is the current developer. 3 years later, in December of 2017, this board approved through Resolution 1732, 90 project-based vouchers to fully subsidize the 90 replacement units to be located at the off-site Bruce Monroe site. I kind of want to emphasize, the agency is fully paying market rate for those 90 units at the project. Also in December of 2017, the board, after much internal discussion, approved through Resolution 1735 a phased demolition of the existing buildings at Park Morton. 3 or 4 years go by, and in June of this year, there was an article in the DCHA that said, in part, after years of stalled plans to raise and redevelop Park Morton housing complex in Parkview, DC Mayor Muriel Bowser's administration is offering an alternative: rehabilitate the existing buildings instead. Possible new plan is reflected in Bowser's 2022 budget, which allocates just under $15 million to rehabilitate Park Morton. Fast forward to July 8th, there's an update to the article that says, in and about face, DC Mayor Muriel Bowser will now allocate enough money to redevelop the Park Morton housing complex after the original plan to only funding repairs to make the Parkview complex livable. So moving again back to the redevelopment plan. Now, in October, today, 12 years after this was initially let in 2009, the board is being asked to approve yet another infrastructure loan for new communities development to develop a multi-phased, multi-location redevelopment project that has no certainty of ever getting completed. Even if executed in perfection, will not be done for many, many more years, and will result in only 57 of the 174 families currently at Park Morton returning to the footprint. In the meantime, the 174 units on Park Morton are 12 years older and showing their age. We've had hundreds of meetings, spent millions of dollars, and thousands of hours of staff time. And there's not much tangible to show for it. DCHA has a singular obligation to replace or renovate the 174 units of public housing on the 0.6-acre site known as Park Morton. We've spent 12 years trying to be a good partner to the city and trying to allow them to leverage our asset to produce additional units beyond our mandate. And those efforts thus far have fallen short. It's time to recognize that we have an obligation to the residents of Park Morton and to fulfill our obligation to them. The fastest and most efficient way to do that is to renovate the existing buildings as soon as we can get started. We have the resources to do it. We have 90 project-based vouchers to fund it. We have additional funding available. In other words, navigate from where you are and not where you wish you were. We owe that to the people that we serve. So the questions I would have for the staff would be, under the plan that's being proposed, when will the 174 units be delivered and ready for occupancy?
So Commissioner Slover, there's 147 replacement units that need to be replaced. 27 have already been replaced at that avenue. And as you said, this first phase of redevelopment will provide 47 new replacement units on phase 1 of Park Morton. And that can happen within 2 to 3 years. And also the Zoning Commission is going to have a limited scope hearing for Bruce Monroe, which would open up the ability to build the other 90 at the Bruce Monroe site. They're going to look at that PUD based on the current comp plan, which is favorable to what was submitted as part of the planned unit development for Bruce Monroe.
So, as I said, we have an obligation to replace 174 units. I recognize that 27 of them have been replaced. So we have the balance. My question to you,
147.
will the balance be delivered? And the answer is we don't know.
We have a plan that we can move on today.
But what I'm saying is, I'm going back to someone that referenced it earlier. In 2016, we were presented with this very same scenario on Berry Farm. The exact same scenario. And we're now in 2021, and no one has returned to that site. And so what I'm saying to you is we need to learn lessons here, which is to say that after 12 years of trying, this, can we spend another? I mean, you just said yourself, stuff on the site won't be done for everything goes perfectly. So I mean, the answer to the question of when are these units going to be replaced is we don't know.
Andre, I thought you gave a timeline for 147 units, pros timeline.
Yeah.
Well, for the first phase, we would have 47 replacement units, and that would happen within the next 2 to 3 years. And if we can get the Bruce Monroe project started as well, that would produce the other 90. So it's the progress is moving
What I'm
forward.
saying is that right now, we don't know when.
That's not correct. We know when we will have the next set of units available to be put online.
I'm asking you a very specific question. When will the entire allocation, when will the 174 replacement units be?
We have a plan for 147 replacement units because there's 27 that have already been replaced.
Andre, I understand that. So 27 have been delivered. I get that. Okay. We're all in agreement on that. So we don't know when they'll all be done. Our obligation is to replace 174 units. 27 have been done.
Right. We'll come back
to
to
when the rest will be delivered.
And Commissioner, I think what Andre was trying to convey is that the first step to get to that is doing the infrastructure on the site in order to deliver the additional 47 that are part of this phase one, and the remainder will be in the Bruce Monroe project, which is currently undergoing its zoning. And I think, Andre, I think it would be helpful to also say, to correct one piece of information in that the original plan also called for a different mix of affordability and market. Do you want to speak to what phase one and its current iteration and the level of affordability?
Sure. Currently, the first phase is considered to be a total affordable project. The actual market rate component has been replaced with 80% AMI units, and we're going to try to take advantage of income averaging and leverage as much tax credit equity as we can to fully fund the first phase of this development at Park Morton on site.
Okay, so I know the commissioner has some more questions. So
all I'm saying is this is the exact same thing that was said to us at Ferry Farm. The exact same, I mean, exact words, which were, can't do anything until we do this infrastructure. It's going to start everything. It's get the ball rolling. But in the world that I live in, you have to at least have the pieces have to be better put together. And so what I'm saying is, after 12 years, don't think it's the best decision for us to embark on something with so many unknowns when we have a real obligation to replace these units. And we can't sit here today and say, if you take this money, this is the date that they'll be done, because there's so many unknowns. We talked about it earlier. Very complicated. And sometimes you just have to say, you know what? We have to meet our mission, and our mission is to make sure.
So all due respect, Commissioner, one
you are cutting me off. You know that.
I'm sorry?
You are cutting me off. You do know that.
Oh, I apologize. I did not mean to interrupt. I apologize.
Okay, so Bill, do you want to finish your question so he doesn't cut you off, and then he could respond?
I'm done. I have two more questions. If anybody wants to respond to anything I said, otherwise I'll move on.
Yeah, why don't you move on?
So, who is deciding which plan to proceed?
I didn't understand your question, Commissioner. We're moving.
Reading all the articles in the newspaper, it sounds like the mayor is making decisions, and I'm wondering if the agency, who's deciding which plan to proceed?
Again, Commissioner, if I can interject, the piece of information that we are now armed with that we were not armed with before is a commitment from the mayor for the FY21 and FY22 and FY23 commitment in order to move this project forward. So, armed with that information, DCHA, in partnership with the city, is now able to move this project forward. So to answer your question, and ultimately it's that the executive director's discretion in order to recommend which way to move forward. And this is the path that, we are continuing to move forward. But we are now armed with the additional commitment of funds from the city.
Not the way it sounds in the newspaper. But newspapers often wrong. The third question would be, are there any requirements attached to this money? In other words, are there any stipulations? Is there any is it confined to a certain thing? In other words, we're approving an MOU, which we haven't seen. So I'd like to understand what it obligates us to do with the money.
As part of the resolution, we're going to loan this money into the developer in order to raise additional equity for the project, in order to shorten the gap. And part of taking this money is we're actually redeveloping new housing, not renovating existing property. So as part of the MOU, we will be following the PUD and building new rental housing in phase 1.
Now I'm really confused. You're taking this $14 million and down. Resolution reads that it's to be spent on infrastructure. So I don't understand how you're going to leverage infrastructure dollars. The response
to the vertical phase, this will be part of eligible basis for the project, and it could be leveraged as equity for the vertical phase as well.
But my question is not that. My question is that GenFed's going to give us this money. Money's going to come over into the DCHA bank account. If I borrow money from a bank, the bank's going to say, hey, you can't go to Las Vegas with this money. You have to, do something. You have to do something specific with it. My question is, does the MOU specify how the money has to be?
I think, Andre, the only other thing that I would add is regarding the spending of district funds and CBE usage.
No, but I think the question that—
I'm not getting my question across. I'm sorry, Neil.
Yeah, Bill, let me see if I can reframe it. So the resolution specifically calls out infrastructure and demolition. I think what the commissioner is asking is for clarification, is that this is what the 14-point-odd million dollars is going to be spent on. Andre is answering a different question.
That is correct.
But do we have to?
Yes, as part of the MOU, it's for demolition and infrastructure, and there's a construction schedule as well as sources and uses and a scope of work as part of the MOU.
So if this agency wakes up tomorrow and realizes, wow, we can't spend another 10, 12, 15 years getting to the conclusion, to the finish line, and maybe the best thing and the most efficient thing, the most responsible thing is to renovate what we have, because we spent 12 years trying to do something different, we can't use that $14 million to do that.
You're correct. We cannot use it for those purposes.
Well, good thing we have 90 project-based vouchers to subsidize that program. So with that in mind, I can't support it, because history has shown that taking money for infrastructure on these projects has not resulted in progress. So I would have to say that I think we should be going on a different road. So I won't be able to support it. So thank you.
All right, thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Council, and then Anna, I'll get back to you.
Well, from our perspective, delay is not denied. It takes me back to thinking about Ms. Whitfield, to Frank Smith, that used to sit on the board and was DC counsel, and even down to Nadeau, that's still on the council, that's been a part of Park Morton. Ms. Leftfield has passed away and the other two councils have taken a hand off the project, which makes me wonder, what are we really doing? 12 years, and they're still living in the conditions that they're living. They're trying to meet us halfway and come up with a plan. And not to say that they want us to use the whole entire plan. Can we use some of it? Can we go back to the board and talk to find out where it is a respectful win-win on both parts? The mayor has even gotten involved. And it's been 12 years and the condition of their lifestyle hasn't changed. We have to move on and we have to find out what the problem is.
Thank you, Commissioner Council. Commissioner Hoffman. And you unmute.
If we were to approve this plan today, a batch of rehabilitatable buildings will be torn down right at the outset. Am I not correct?
Buildings will
That's
be
correct.
torn down as part of demolition for the first phase. The state that they're able to be rehabbed, that's still open.
Open, but not closed. So once we approve this, we cannot do the easy thing of fixing 174 units on site so people can live in them healthily and comfortably. Right? Once we approve this, Park Morton is gone.
We would move forward with phase one. And I like to know that rehabilitation is not easy.
Is not what?
It's not easy
I'm not saying it's
or
easy.
inexpensive.
Redevelopment is certainly more expensive, more disruptive to the residents, although the residents by now have all been scattered, as was true at Barry Farm. We don't have any money to put into Bruce Monroe, right?
That's correct. We not own the land at Bruce Monroe. That is district land.
So the majority of the replacement units are in a building we may or may not get access to, and we may or may not be able to afford to make them into replacement units, right?
So, Commissioner, the board has passed a resolution proposing to allocate vouchers to Bruce Monroe in order to support the Park Morton project in order to provide replacement units. And the other point that I would make is that the PUD, we have a PUD that's currently passed through the Zoning Commission to support the redevelopment of Park Morton and funding in order to support the redevelopment of Park Morton on site, and do not have any dedicated funding in order to support a rehabilitation of on-site Park Morton. Just wanted to clarify that.
Right, but we are displacing everybody who was there, and we are not replacing them until whatever happens with Bruce Monroe. More than half of the units are coming from a building we don't control, and I can see why we're not saying when everybody will be back, because we have no idea. And as I recall from the last meeting, we have no plan B if Bruce Morton doesn't work out. Is that still true?
Commissioner, I think we have a path forward with Bruce Monroe that we are currently taking, in conjunction with the city to the Zoning Commission. If the Zoning Commission changes of what that Bruce Monroe project looks like, we would then work with the city in order to ensure that our 90 units are still accounted for, with the acknowledgement that it could be, within a different project at Bruce Monroe, but it would be contingent upon us in order to secure those units, and the city as our partner would help us do so.
I cannot approve this proposal with all the unknowns and all the unfairs. I just can't.
Thank you, Commissioner Hoffman. Let's see who we've missed. Commissioner Falchecchio.
Thank you, Chairman. So how many residents currently live on site? How many families or units are occupied?
Approximately 27 units are occupied on site.
I thought it was 25.
I can double check the numbers, but it's approximately 25, 27 units that are occupied.
Okay, and then can you just walk us through so how this will work in terms of the for the families that are on site? How will they be impacted? Can you just talk that through and how this funding allows you to mobilize?
So we'll be able to fence off the site, that most of the work that'll be taking place. The residents that are currently on site will be shielded from any ongoing work. We'll be able to build the new sewer, water, lay the groundwork for electrical, as well as the foundation for the new buildings that will be built as part of phase one. And once we move forward next year with the vertical phase, we could quickly move forward with vertical construction as well.
Okay, and so you'll start as early as this year in some of this abatement work, the fencing, the site prep for the new project to start. So that will start by before the end of the year.
That's correct.
Okay, and then the timeline that I've seen shows that it was about 22 months, correct? So right now, if we're saying the end of the year, it's about 22 months of construction, or how long is the construction? For phase one, just isolating phase one.
We're estimating they could at least be 22, 24 months of construction. Just based on the phasing when we can actually start the vertical construction.
Okay. And then in phase one, there are how many replacement units?
So there are 47 replacement units in phase one.
Okay. So right now there's only about 25 or 27 families on site. And in phase one alone, you'll have how many replacement units?
So we'll have a total of 47 replacement units as part of phase one.
Okay. So brand new construction, phase one. So you'll have enough units theoretically to the families that are still on site to move into new units if they so choose.
We would have enough units for residents to move on site. And let me correct myself, it's actually a total of 43 replacement units. I said
43.
43.
Okay. But just, I guess to that point, I was trying to highlight is that it seems like you'd have enough units for the families that are still on site, with additional being able to move back on site into new construction.
Correct.
Okay. What year did the board approve the demolition of Park Morton?
It was at the end of the year of 2017 as a demo dispo approval, a phased demo dispo approval.
Okay. Can you tell us what that means? What's that process?
So it allows us to redevelop the Park Morton site in phases. And it allows residents the opportunity to one, stay on site if they wanted to, or to utilize a voucher to move off site. There were quite a few residents that actually chose the voucher to move off site. As replacement units come online, they'll have the opportunity to move into those new replacement units.
And so how does this funding today help you realize some of the commitments that went back to, it's been mentioned earlier as far as 2010, but also board action, this very body, although not many of us were members at that point, that voted to demo the property back in, you said 2017. So how does this funding help advance that?
It helps move that phase one forward that we envision for Park Morton. There was thoughts that we would be able to do Bruce Monroe first, but because we moved forward with the demo dispo of Park Morton and residents were relocated, we have the opportunity to allow residents to move back to Park Morton sooner by moving forward with this resolution today.
Right. So if we don't move forward with it too, then how do we get residents back to the site?
We don't.
Okay.
Not accurate.
So if we don't move forward with it today, we don't get residents back to the site. Okay. Then I think there have been some questions raised, and I think we have to continue to work together to address them. But you have my support for this resolution because it is the way to actually move this forward, so residents can move back to the site. More residents than are on the site even today. Chairman, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Bill, you can make one last point.
I just think it's disingenuous to say that we can't move residents back to the site if we don't take this money. We have 90 project-based vouchers that we've set aside, full market rate vouchers. We could bank those vouchers. We could renovate this property. So I just think it's a little disingenuous to say if we don't take this $14.8 million that we can't move residents. And to say that, you know, we're fulfilling an obligation to the board made 4.5 years ago is just another reason why this project needs to have a direction change. 4.5 years ago, we thought we were moving forward, and we didn't. We haven't. It took 4.5 years to get to this point. And so I just think it's at some point you just have to stand back and say, we got to do something different. We've got to figure out a way to do this more efficiently and faster.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask one question of staff?
Yeah, no, this one, I know John wanted to make a point, and then I'd love to close it out. Dion, I see you. Yes, we'll get to you. John, you'd have to come off of mute.
Every time you speak when you're still on mute, an angel gets their wings. So, I got to emphasize too, there was, you know, even more public debate, even more stakeholders who weighed in on this too during the council budget deliberation, and the notion of renovating was one that the district, I think, put some language around in the Budget Support Act. So I do think that it is important that this is a project that the board approved demolition in 2017. We've got possibly 27 families on site. We can deliver 43 units of replacement housing by taking this action today. That would mean that those families are in new construction within about 2 years. Sorry, Chairman, I'll yield back.
Thank you. All right, so Commissioner Bussey Reeder, and then our director, and then I have a couple of points to make.
Sure. I just respectfully, so I just want to make sure that when we're on these calls, public calls, we're sharing accurate information. And Commissioner Slover, some of the information you shared about Berry Farm, I think it sends a picture to the residents that we're not as concerned about them as we are. Your numbers were slightly off. I know accurately that the residents who moved off of Berry Farm property, you have 100 in Sheridan Terrace who are happily there. We actually, I know them well. They are not looking to return. That is a part of the replacement units that the city promised 10 years ago when the project, 15 years ago when the project first started. The 31 residents that are in Matthews are seniors that knew that 1/3 of the 90 residents that were there were going to Matthews. 5 residents from Berry Farm purchased homes. So the remaining residents that are not on the property are engaged, at least at a minimum, 300 of those residents are engaged. So to say that engaged to prepare them to return, so to say that we're not doing anything and those residents were not properly placed is inaccurate. And I believe as we continue to talk and we're speaking of this 4 years, we're also forgetting for the last 2 years, much didn't occur in our government across this country. So understanding that that pandemic occurred, I don't want to send a message to this community in which I live in, quite frankly. I'm at home today. I live walking blocks from Park Morton. To say to them that we're being disingenuous in terms of where we want them to place is not true. I am a firm believer that we do need to have equity for the residents there. One of the things I said at my confirmation very clearly, I would like to see how we can move residents from being renters to home owners using their vouchers. These conversations I've had with the executive director. So we got to be clear as a body, the statements that we're making and how we're actually doing more propaganda as it relates to being political than we want to say that the residents are. So for me, Shanta, residents that are there, I've already sent a couple of messages. I would like to be more engaged in conversations with you all, knowing that this is the community that I live in as well, and how we can be able to support this process. I am going to vote in favor because I do believe we have to start with the infrastructure, and I'm going to work to hold the executive director accountable to ensure that many of the things that we can do within the equity plan is done under my time working on this board. So I just wanted to bring some clarity around how we're making statements, and I don't like the propaganda that we're pushing. And as a body, we have to put these residents first, knowing that a part of any proposal that we're doing in these new communities will allow residents to move into other properties that will be their new home as a part of the entire comprehensive plan. So thank you, Chair. That was my statement in response.
I thank you for the opportunity to weigh in. Thank you for my colleagues. This has been a very spirited conversation. A couple of things I want to say. So there's been the question as to whether or not we do full rehab or the development that was proposed, Bill would say 12, maybe 15 years ago. And in either scenario, I think what I've heard from the residents is that they would like a stake in the ownership of a building or a community that they've lived in for a very long time. I've been on the public record as saying that homeownership and equity should be part of redevelopment writ large within the city. It's all part of what we all dream of. We all dream of homeownership. And as you've heard many people testify here today, there were some efforts under the prior leadership at DCHA to move in that direction. So DCHA had been working through the Office of the General Counsel to help the residents put together a resident management organization. I'm not sure if that's the correct terminology. Myself and Bill, some of the other commissioners have been part of that conversation in the past with the staff and leadership of DCHA. Whether it's for Park Morton or for some other development in the city, I do think giving residents an opportunity to actually form organizations like those for current or future development opportunities is something that we should look into as an agency. And then I want to just talk about the equity piece of it a little bit more. I think as the Deputy Mayor said and Executive Director I think said, even though it's a great concept, there are complications related to it. And so there are conversations that need to occur with the development team, that need to occur with the funding team, including the Deputy Mayor's Office, and the Executive Director is committed, as I've heard, to continuing those conversations. And then finally, you know, during the last budget development session, there were lots of conversations about whether or not we do a full rehab, as some folks were suggesting, or we do the development as originally proposed. The city, including the city council, put a significant amount of money into the continued redevelopment plan. And I think this investment of 14-point-something million from the Deputy Mayor's Office to the infrastructure of this project is just a step forward. It does not, in my mind, preclude the Executive Director from having the conversations that are needed around the management organization, resident management organization, and equity. So I'm going to encourage Director Donald and the team to re-engage in a way that, and the manner that has occurred before you came here. I know you're just getting your sea legs onto you, Director Donald. There were regular meetings that were occurring prior to you getting here. Both Commissioner Slover and Commissioner Hoffman would tell you at some point in time, we thought it wasn't wise for the commissioners to be involved with those conversations if we're going to have to vote on them. And so I really want to encourage you to continue those conversations because I think the residents deserve it. And with that, I am going to entertain a motion to approve Resolution 21-18. Is there a motion?
Motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Great. So I'm going to ask for Secretary to determine a roll call vote. Madam Secretary.
Thank you. Commissioner Falchecchio,
Yes.
Commissioner Bussey Reeder,
Yes.
Commissioner Strickland,
Yes.
Commissioner Hoffman. I didn't hear you, Commissioner Hoffman.
No.
Thank you. Commissioner Council,
Same.
is that an abstention? Thank you. Commissioner Ortiz-Gal,
Yes.
thank you. Commissioner Slover,
No.
thank you. Chairman Albert,
Yes.
thank you. You have 5 yes, 2 noes, 1 abstention. The resolution is approved.
Thank you, Madam Secretary, and thank you, Commissioners, for all the comments and input on this resolution. We'll next move to Resolution 21-19, which is to accept the final audit of fiscal year 2020. And at this point in time, I'm going to turn it back over to our Executive Director.
So, Mr. Chairman, the board has been briefed by the auditors on the FY 2020 financial report, and we are ready to ask the board to approve that audit.
Great. So let me just open it up to see if there are any questions or comments from our commissioners on the audit. This commission has never been this quiet on an issue. Great. So at this time, I would entertain a motion to approve Resolution 21-19, which is to accept the final audit for fiscal year 2020.
I so move.
So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. Could we do a roll call vote, Madam Secretary?
Thank you. Commissioner Bussey Reeder,
Yes.
thank you. Commissioner Falchecchio,
Yes.
thank you. Commissioner Strickland, Commissioner Strickland. I'll circle back. Commissioner Hoffman,
Yes.
thank you. Commissioner Council, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you, Commissioner Council. Thank you. Commissioner Ortiz-Gal. Commissioner, you're on mute. Okay, I'll circle back to Commissioner Ortiz-Gal. Commissioner Slover.
Yes.
Thank you. I'll circle back to Commissioner Strickland. Are you still there? And Commissioner Ortiz-Gal. We're having some difficulties with muting. Chairman Albert.
Yes.
We have 6 yes, the resolution is approved.
Thank you so much. So at this part of our meeting, we open up for public testimony. We first go with our residents. Residents have 5 minutes. Non-residents have 3 minutes. First on our list is Dina Brown. Is Ms. Brown available? Let's move to Keisha Williams. All right, we may be having some difficulty with our Zoom or WebEx. People are not being able to access it. Let's move on to Karen Lundgren.
Yes. Good day, commissioners. Hi, everybody. My
Good
name's
day.
Karen Lund. Am I still going?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I just want to make sure the 5 minutes starts now.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay. Hi, you guys. My name's Karen Lundgren. I appreciate you commissioners allowing me to testify here before you today. I have a lot of concerns I need to bring to your attention. I ported my voucher to DC from Maryland. And a couple years ago, I've had issues with my address being entered wrong into the system. I asked them several times to amend it. I was told by Kurt Batson, it's no big deal. It's all internal. Don't worry about it. Well, it is a big deal to me because, a lot of errors can come from that. Then I found out the last 4 of my social security number was entered wrong. So I had to go above people and finally got to Carol Punter and she fixed it. But there's numerous other things that are going on right now, you guys. I have issues with the property management here and their legal counsel wrote a letter to the DC Housing Authority. I wasn't even aware of it. I got a call from somebody in the mediation department here and they didn't even tell me what was going on. And I'm like, I need to know what's going on before you're asking me to give you details. So he hung up and called me back and he said something about their legal counsel at the property wrote DCHA a letter and I have an attorney. So I told him, well, I think my attorney should deal with it. My point is that this mediation person went behind my back and called the attorney for the property and asked for my attorney's information. And it created all kinds of dissension. Then Carol Punter got involved and she called me and I don't think she handled it effectively at all. She was defending the actions of her employee. She wasn't very objective. I even sent a letter to, reach out to Miss Donald and Miss Brenda Donald redirected me back to Carol Punter. I just feel like I'm not getting a fair shake. I'm having issues with security deposit, being told that they can't give me one because they're frozen. I'm not a local voucher recipient. Rather, I'm a federal voucher recipient. And yet I know of other people that are getting it. And I'm very confused. I feel like I'm not getting a fair universal answer. Moving on is these recent utility cards came out for utility assistance that the US Relia card with US Bank. I had issues with that as well. I called the number on the back of the card. They asked me for the last 4 of my social security number, which didn't make any sense to me why I'm even being asked for that. And then when I gave her the last 4, she told me she couldn't verify me. So then I was very concerned because it was misentered before. So then I reached out to Miss Punter, Miss Aisha Thompson several times to say, I really want this investigated. I don't understand why I'm being asked for this, and I want to make sure this is investigated. I couldn't get people to respond to me. I had a really hard time with that. I continued to send communications. I finally did hear back from Aisha Thompson, and she assured me, this is on or about August 20th, and she assured me that a manager from US Bank would call me the following Monday. Well, that Monday came and went and nothing. I didn't hear from anybody. So I gotta be honest with you guys, I'm very unhappy with some of these things going on. I had to reach back out again several times. It's really hard to get a response from anybody. And finally, somebody did call me from the number on the back of the card, but it's considered to be a spam call on my phone, and my phone auto rejected it. And I thought the point was I was supposed to get a call from a manager of US Bank. Well, that never did happen, although I was assured of that. So then finally, I reached back out several times, and finally somebody called me. And when I told her the story, she said, well, what do you want me to do? I'm just a call center supervisor. So, I mean, you guys, I'm kind of frustrated and exasperated right now. So then Carol Punter wrote me a letter. Okay, well, sorry. She wrote me a letter basically acting like it's my fault here. And I gotta be honest with you, and I'm very unsettled and unhappy with the events. This is very much unresolved. And I really would like to get this resolved by a senior level employee who can work with me as to these issues. Thank you. I'm sorry I went over you guys.
No, Karen, that's fine. So we do have the executive director here, and I don't know, Brenda, do you mind giving, if you send her an email?
I have, yeah. And Ms. Punter wrote me a letter that she CC'd Brenda McDonald on, but I'm not really comfortable with Ms. Punter at this point. I don't feel like these issues are getting effectively resolved.
Well, what I'm saying is that we have the top boss here and the executive director listening to you, and we will be following up with her regarding your issue. So thanks for bringing them to our attention.
Okay, and thank you for letting me testify, commissioners. Thank you.
You're quite welcome.
Appreciate it.
Heather Day.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
We can hear you. Go right ahead.
Okay. My name is Heather Day, and I'm here with a few issues that I need to follow up on. In March 10th, 2021, I sent an email to Greg Mays, Larry Williams, and a few others in reference to rent abatement meeting. I'm trying to get some issues squared away on my ledger. I've been trying to get these issues squared away forever. No one is doing anything. I spoke to them. Everyone said we want to work on it. I had a phone call 3-4 months down the line, still no resolution, still no update. I just learned today that Mr. Mays is no longer with us. I feel like somebody or something should have communicated that issue to me, because I've been reaching out, sending emails to Larry Williams, Andrea Powell, and Greg Mays, and I'm being told that, hey, we'll follow up with you, we'll figure out what's going on, and nothing has happened. I had a meeting in July with Larry Williams and Samadra Watson, trying to figure out what the plans are and the next steps as far as me and my family. I was told that the unit at Elmans Road should probably be repaired and I'll be able to return back. At that time, I did mention that my oldest 2 children, who were really traumatized by the fire that happened in December, didn't want to return there. So if I had to break my family up and then the rest of us return to that unit, then that's fine. We were trying to get my dad into a 1-bedroom unit that we've been dealing with since July. I've been sending over information. They've been sending over info. It's October and he's still not moved in. Another thing is I requested an email after our meeting on August 25th, that they send over a household composition chart so that I know, the family size and what's what our options were. At that time, I was reached out to by another member of DCHA who said that he can assist my dad with getting a unit, and come to find out, Samadra Watson and Larry Williams are interfering with that. My thing is, if I'm getting help from another DCHA staff member, why interfere with that? We're trying to figure out the relocation as far as my family. We're trying to figure out what the next steps are. If this person is willing to help us out, why are you interfering with that? You didn't want to help us, so now you're trying to interfere with the person who is trying to help us. The DCHA Melville meeting, that was in August 17th. That was a disaster. There was no real updates or concerns. or any questions to anything that we asked. The only thing we really learned from that meeting that MCN billed was the general contractor. Every rep that we asked questions to pretty much was short answered and told us to send our questions to the transformation plan. Now, as you know, a while back, that has not been successful. I did that. I waited 3-4 months, got questions and side notes and answers that didn't even have anything to do with any of the questions. During that meeting, LaShawn Douglas said that the questions will be transcribed and we will receive answers. The information will be sent out to residents. We never received any of that, and that was in August. Also during that call, they mentioned the DCHS, which is the DC Housing Solutions. I asked, well, what is it, first of all, and what role do they play in the redevelopment? Andre Gould said, they are the group that makes decisions about our lives. I was like, that's not an explanation. Okay. So I said, can you go into more detail? He didn't really give too much detail. He just said, hey, it's with some of the board of commissioners, and pretty much that's the group that makes decisions about our lives. And I was like, well, how is it that we can have a public meeting with the DC Board of Commissioners, but we can't have a meeting with the 501c3 entity that's, pretty much, like he said, making decisions about our lives? He pretty much didn't have any other explanation. He was just like, that's the way it's set up. First of all, that comment threw me off. They're a group that makes decisions about our lives. Why do we not have any say-so or any input? That's the issue that we all deal with now. It doesn't matter what we have to say or how we feel. We don't have any input with it. And then every question that we ask gets twisted and turned around, gets unanswered. We're trying to find out with my whole situation as a whole where the ball was dropped and who didn't do what. And here we are again. I didn't know that people were no longer employed. No one is following up on any email. No one is doing anything. So it's like, myself as a resident, what do you expect me to do when I go through the chain of command? I've spoke to everyone from LaJuan Slaughter, Watson, to Brandy Lynch, Larry Williams, Tyrone, like Neil Anderson. I spoke to you, Mr. Counsel. I spoke to almost everyone. I spoke to Anita Barnes. I spoke to everyone. What do I do?
So
I'm still in a jacked up situation. I went from bad to worse. What's left? Hell? Like, this is crazy. My family is still suffering.
Ms. Day, your time is up, but we've heard you. Director Donald, again, I'm going to ask if you can personally reach out to Ms. Day. She's listed a lot of concerns and, indicate sort of a lack of follow-up. And then hopefully you're going to report back to the board.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Ms. Day.
Thank you.
Moving right along, Linda Brown.
Hello.
Yeah, go ahead, Ms. Brown.
Yes, good afternoon, commissioners. This is Linda Brown. I was going to ask some questions about Greenleaf Senior, the redevelopment, but a situation happened this weekend where from Saturday to Monday, I had no hot water. And when I called in onto the emergency after hours, no one responded. And the person on the phone, the receptionist, said that she was based in Miami. So I didn't understand any of that, except we didn't have any hot water from Saturday evening to Monday at 10 a.m. I didn't understand that at all. And to respond with someone who is answering service that is located in Miami.
That's the first time I'm hearing about that.
That's the first time I'm hearing about it.
Yeah. Well, let me again ask the executive director just quickly to discuss that issue. I don't think we have call centers in Miami, do we?
I think we do, in this last year, contracted for after hours call center response. But let me look into that, and certainly we have to, wherever they're based, if they're contracted to respond and to link someone up with services that are needed for after hours. So I will look into that, Ms. Brown. I will follow up with you, and I'll talk with you also about Greenleaf Senior.
Yes, and I want to say that I was on the phone, and my neighbor in 15 was right beside me, so I know what she said, and I know it's based and not Amy.
So,
So
I'm
I
not
have no
disputing you,
doubt
Ms.
about
Brown.
that.
Yes. I'll
Oh,
follow up with
okay.
you. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you so much, Ms. Brown, and we will be following up with the executive director on your issue. Next up is Abina Disro.
Yes, okay, I'm here. 1 second. Good morning, everybody. Greetings and salutations. I have a couple of questions of concern. The last Melvo meeting that I participated in by listening was on Tuesday, August the 17th. And there's a question that came up. It's really something because it's about what Heather Day spoke on. Someone asked, what was DCHS? I really didn't know what that was, but now I know it's DC Housing Solutions. And someone asked the question, why were they meeting privately? And it was Mr. Andre Gould who said, he answered, they are the group which makes decisions about your lives and that's the way that it's set up. Okay, I have some questions. First of all, I would like to know who that group is. In that group, how many of those people who ever lived in public housing? And in that group, how many in that group and who are they? Have they ever lived in public housing? Now, when he said to everybody, that's the group that makes decisions about your lives. That didn't take very well with me. I know that in elementary school, they have make decisions about children. They have PTAs where they include the parents so that they can have some input. And we are all adults, very intelligent people who can actually give good suggestions. And that statement to me, it just made me feel like it's just another form of, excuse me, I may seem a little drastic, like another form of slavery, because nobody can speak for me. Everybody's situation is different. Everybody has different concerns. The concerns here where I'm at Ontario Road may not be the same concerns at Potomac Gardens. That may not be the same concerns at Lincoln. So how can someone speak for us? And I would like to know, why is it that we are not included? Even if there has to be a committee of people who live in public housing, at least our voice needs to be there. And when our voice is not there and it's not included, that's the opportunity that we will never know any possibilities when they are first presented. We will never know the changes that may occur. They may be minor to you, but they may be urgent and emergency status to us, where we can articulate and give our voice on how it will affect us. How do anybody in that group who speaks for us really know how any decision is going to affect me, is going to affect Heather, or anybody else that lives in public housing? It seems like a really big disrespect to me when our voices aren't even heard, that we are not present there. Also, it opens up the opportunity that if they're making decisions about my life, what should happen here that's best for me, then I mean, think about it. Isn't that just a little bit crazy?
Yeah, so Mr. Stroh, let me see if I can.
Need to be there. Pardon me. My 5 minutes up.
Yeah, almost up, but I really wanted to get.
Will I still have my 5 minutes?
Yeah, go right ahead.
Okay. The other thing is this resolution 19-10 that authorized financing activities for the rental assistance demonstration program, which is the RAD program. Okay, it says it's for Evans Road, the Villager, Lincoln Road, and Ontario Road. I'm not sure if that resolution 19-10 was just set up for those communities, or is that for all of the communities that will undergo RAD. Okay, so it says it's put together to preserve and improve public housing and certain other multifamily housing through voluntary conversion. And it goes on, there's some other things that have been set up, like the resolution 19 through 10 was set up, I believe it was March 14th, 2012, which is 9 years ago. Now there's also something called Capital Housing Partners. Then there's another program that's been set up. My question is, do all of them have the same mission? Do all of them have the same vision? And if they are, don't you think that people living in public housing should know what this is? The majority of us can read, we can comprehend, we can figure out things so that we can ask intelligent questions, so that we will know what's coming down the line or the pipeline that could affect us. Because
Yes. Your time is up, so I want to make sure that we respond to the main points that you made. So I've heard a couple of folks talk about DC Housing Solutions and inferring that they make decisions for you. Nothing could be further from the truth. I'm going to ask Andrea Powell Andrea, I hate to put you on the spot, but in 30 seconds or less, share with the public what's DCHS, who are the members of DCHS, and what is the role of DCHS.
So the information he said where everybody was listening was incorrect. Is that what you're saying? That's not true?
Well, could you, Ms. Dishro, could you, I'm going to ask our Acting General Counsel to respond as I asked.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Andrea Powell. DC Housing Solution is actually made up of the same board members as DC Housing Authority. So they're the same 11 spots that are the DC Housing Authority Board of Commissioners. So that's who DC Housing Solutions is. And it's created, and you mentioned Capital Housing Partners, to allow us to be able to put together projects that might require a guarantee for financing. So that's why there's a separate entity that you mentioned, Capital Housing Partners, and you mentioned 1910. So this structure is used to be able to basically get the funding to redevelop, to rehabilitate those 5 sites. So
why is it private? Why is it private?
It's a 501c3 nonprofit. It is not.
A 501c3 shouldn't be private. Why is it private?
So it is a nonprofit. It is not the same as the Housing Authority, but is to further the mission of creating affordable housing. So people that are making decisions are the same ones that are making decisions on this call. So they're not anyone else. It's the same 11 board members. And the purpose of that resolution earlier this year was to provide for that contract, I think, as Ms. Day said, for MCN to be the general contractor. So that
Thank you so much, Andrea. Miss
we would like to be included in on those meetings. I know at least 5 or 6 people who would like to come to those meetings so that we can have a voice. How can that happen? And anyway, that should be our right to be there. Why is it private? Why is it we can't come in and listen? We can't give our opinions from our experience, not from yours.
Right. So just so you know, and we have to move on.
To overstep you.
I just wanted to submit.
Ms. Dishro, hold on one second, everyone. We all can't speak at the same time. So let's just have some decorum here. So, Ms. Dishro, everything that's discussed. I don't know if Brenda, sorry. Everything that's discussed in DC Housing Solutions is also discussed publicly at the board meeting. So again, this is not an entity that meets in secret. Its actions have to be publicly noticed at the board meeting. So nothing that's discussed there would ever elude the public's view. So thank you so much for raising that.
I would like to say one thing. So what we did was we allowed, there were comments that we took at the board meeting, but this is a separate entity. So we took comments back in the springtime as it related to Melvo in the public meeting. So we gave everyone an opportunity to comment there.
I would like for this to
Mr.
be on
Chairman.
record. I would like for this to be on record too. I'm sorry, Ms. McDonald. I just want to say I'd like for this to be on record so that I can later access the comments and what I said. I'm sorry, Ms.
We'll make that happen. Thank you, Ms. Israel.
I just wanted to commit that we will be coming out now to each of the individual communities and meeting with the residents. I know Melbo has been lumped into a package, and that was for financing and for HUD approval. But now when we come out, we're going to be talking in each of the Montana, Elvins, all of the individual communities with the residents. Your voice will definitely be heard. You'll be completely engaged in the process, and I will be personally involved.
Can we make sure I'm
Thank
somehow included on that, because I'm no longer on the property due to the fire at my unit and I don't get
Yes,
communication?
ma'am.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
All right, next is Detrice Belt.
Yes. Hello?
Yes, go ahead, Ms. Belt.
Okay. At the last meeting regarding Berry Farms, you, Director Donald, said that the money to finish the whole Berry Farm development is not there. Can we get any realistic estimate as to when we'll be able to return if we are not part of the people returning to the senior building? Another question is, we are noticing that the historically designated buildings are getting covered in vines, overgrown grass, and tree branches getting really close to the buildings. Who is responsible for maintaining these buildings and the grounds they sit on? When or if any maintenance work is scheduled on these issues so the buildings aren't damaged any further? And just wanted to say rest in peace to Deborah Frazier. Thank you.
Yeah, Ms. Bell, thanks for raising that issue. It has come up again in the last 2 or 3 board meetings. And even in between board meetings, residents have contacted me about the care and maintenance of the historic buildings. And so, Director, if you could spend a minute or so talking about whose responsibility it is and what DCHA is going to do to ensure that the properties are maintained. I'd appreciate it.
Apologies, this is the first time that I've heard that issue raised, and so it's the first time I've heard it raised personally, but we will definitely go out. I'm not sure if it's us or the developer. We will definitely show the respect for those properties and make sure that there's ongoing maintenance, whether it's our crews or the developers. So we'll find out and we will follow up next week.
Yeah, it is the developer's responsibility as far as I know, but at the end of the day, DCHA has oversight over the developers, so.
Yes.
Thank you. Next is Paulette Matthews. While we wait for Ms. Matthews, Dolores Capes. Can't even read my own paper.
Sorry to jump in here. This is Daniel. Ms. Capis was having a lot of trouble logging on to the number provided. I don't know if it's on her end or.
We're going to try and fix it. They're hearing you. We'll get back to her. Pat Malloy.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon, Ms. Malloy.
Today I'm here to speak on our phones in our rental office. And the reason why is the residents are calling me because no one answers the phone. Everything goes straight to voicemail. How can a management office run with only one phone, 2 HMAs? The phone does not work. I don't want the area manager or no one else telling me it does. It does, and it's very disturbing. The residents cannot get service unless they walk up to the office. You can be blind, dumb, crazy. You have to go there in person. Commissioners, I very seldom go to the office now because we have an area manager, Michelle Roberts, that can really pluck my nerves. Allegedly, she told the staff to stop talking to me. She's overstepped her boundary with my resident council space. Right now, I am just fed up with DCHA. I'm fed up with promises. I've been told 2 or 3 years the phone is working. Do you all really believe that? No one has come out here to see. It seems as though this east end of Ward 7, the housing authority carries the least. I'm asking you, get rid of the area manager we have, and I know she's listening. I don't want to go into detail what has happened, but enough is enough. I've noticed that the employees can harass and bully us, but if we do it to them, there's a repercussion. But I have something in store for all of them. Lincoln Heights is one of the properties that's underneath the Attorney General. Going forward, I'm no longer going to come to the Board of Commissioners. I'm going to the Attorney General. Seems like we can get more service if you are in the news, you're in the newspaper, you can get more recognition. Stop treating us like you can treat us anyway. Lincoln Heights, I'm telling you, Lincoln Heights is Lincoln Heights. The staff is afraid to work around here. Nothing is done. They get caught up in crossfires. Nothing is done. DCHA sends someone out here that don't even know why they're out here to talk to the staff. The staff is afraid to talk to me because allegedly they've been told if they keep talking to me, they're going to be fired. My relationship with our runner office, I've cut my ties because of Michelle Roberts. I'm telling you, this is the worst, even though it's a pandemic, this is the worst. This is the worst. On the transformation plan, we haven't had a meeting since June of 2021. Kanisha Brown was the only person that communicated with us. Since she's been gone, it's non and void. Also, we're a new community. God knows, I swear, I hope Lincoln Heights does not have to go through what Park Morton and Burr Farms have went through. I hope I live to see what's going to happen, because right now I have no faith in DCHA. Every week or every month, there's an article in the paper about the housing authority, commissioners, director. Do you all really care? It really looks bad. I'm an ANC commissioner. Every meeting I go to, the first thing they say, Kat, we feel sorry for you. I said, don't feel sorry for me. Feel sorry for them. You all just don't know. I am so hurt and disappointed in this commission, this agency. Bring your body to Lincoln Heights and see what's going on. Get the phones working in the rental office so residents won't have to keep calling me. I get 30 to 40 calls a day. Miss Pat, they not answering the phone.
Ms. Frazier, your time is up. But Director Donald, you've heard the cries from Ms. Malloy, and then Ms. Malloy is no stranger to sending emails and responding and reaching out. I wanted you to take a couple of minutes to respond to her, but particularly our invitation for you to come out to Lincoln Heights.
Sure. And hi, Ms. Malloy again, Commissioner. I have been out to Lincoln Heights, came out this summer and spent some time with Ms. Malloy and got a chance to see some of the issues that she has raised. I did get the email about the telephones, and so we are looking into that. And then we've had a follow-up conversation as well. So we do stay in touch, but I know that the issues that you're raising are bigger than that. And so I'll circle back to you. I've heard you loudly and clearly, and some of the themes that you've raised are consistent as far across the board. So addressing them in a larger way. But let me get to the immediate problems first, so at least you'll know that we're being responsive, trying to be responsive.
Great. Thank you, Director.
Because this phone, I'm gonna tell you, if anybody on this commission realize, every time I testify, it's about these phones.
Yeah. No, we hear you. I promise you that next month you wouldn't be testifying about the phones.
Commissioner Albert,
Yes.
can we make $1 to a donut bet?
Yes.
I'm in on that one too, Ms. Malloy. I won't have you here talking about the phones. It may be something else.
Yes.
But we got to figure that out.
Even if Commissioner Council and I have to fix it ourselves, it will happen. So thank you, Ms. Malloy. And Commissioner Council isn't that great at fixing stuff. So moving right along, Natasha Clough. Is Natasha available?
You see me?
I can't, but I can hear you.
How are you?
Good. Go right ahead. You have 3 minutes.
Okay. My name is Natasha Clough. I am 49 years old. I am disabled. And as such, I qualify for several housing programs geared to assist me. I too am homeless and have been for the last 11 years. I've been unable to access housing. I heard one of the speakers say that delayed does not mean denied. It will be easy for him to split hairs on the definition of words and in his position. However, he's not homeless, nor is he disabled. An 11-year delay is just like a denial. I have contacted every agency. I have emailed every person that I possibly can. And I'm always told to, call this person or whatever. And every email that I send, it's just, it's not being helpful to me. I suffer with a severe social disorder that imprisons me. And for that reason, I'm unable to live in shelters amongst people because I can't, my mental health does not allow me to. I'm suffering, chronically homeless. It's a situation that a person that has a warm place to live just doesn't understand. So for the councilman to say that the delay is not a denial, it's like a slap in the face because it really is a denial because I'm disabled. And there's programs that are supposed to be geared to assist us, but every time I'm exhausted with contacting these people. I'm exhausted with the emails. I'm exhausted with the phone calls. They're leading to nothing. It's just I don't want to make this about an argument because it's not about that. I need to.
Ms. Clough, let's make it about solutions. I hear you. Director Donald, I'm not sure what the answer is, but there's an urgent plea here and an urgent need.
I have my Social Security. I have my letter here from.
Yeah,
I'm
I'm
going
to ask Rachel to look into it and follow up to see exactly.
How can she connect with Rachel?
I will put my email address and my phone number into the chat for you. Can you see that, Ms. Clough?
You need me to hit the little 3 buttons right at the bottom?
Actually, Ms. Clough, why don't you, I will figure out, I think Alethea has your information from when you signed up to testify. I will get that from Alethea and we'll go from there.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Ms. Clough.
You're welcome. Bye.
Next up is Desmond Washington. Don't hear Mr. Washington. Daniel, you signed up to talk about the transformation plan. Given out 3 minutes.
Thank you, Commissioner. I wanted to bring up a couple of points. One is, what is happening with the transformation plan? We've heard some things in the press that are leading me to believe that there may be a shift in the course that was set by the previous director. So there's that question I wanted to pin. I also wanted to bring up, there's been quite a lot in the press lately about, and this is not a got you moment, Chair, for you, but what really concerns me about the story that came out about, I guess they are accusations of potential conflict of interest regarding a contract that was provided to Moya Enterprise, or I forget the full name. What really bothers me, and I have to channel my mentor and somebody that I grew to love, Deborah Frazier, is that ultimately what we've learned is that nothing is happening with the redevelopment or the redevelopment of the plots that would have allowed residents to return to Capers Carrollsburg. This is what Deborah Frazier fought, since the Hope 6 to the end of her life. And as I understand it, nothing is happening. So what is happening with that? Also, I'm concerned about the composition of this board. Also, we've heard stories about Commissioner Talaferro. We still don't have a voucher person on the board. So all of these questions are, to me, really concerning, because it all ends up in residents not getting what they need and deserve. So I realize that there may be some human resource concerns here, and things may not be able to be spoken on. But as I mentioned, ultimately, what's happening with the transformation plan, what's happening with the units that have yet to be delivered at Capers, and what's happening with the composition of this board.
Great. So let me ask Director Donald to talk a little bit about what's happening with the transformation plan.
Yes, so the transformation plan is part of really focused on 14 of the most troubled assets. We are pulling out from that. We're not going away from the transformation plan. Maybe the transformation plan is something that as a package. We're looking at all of our properties, and at our next meeting with the advocates, we will do a briefing similar to the one that we did to the board today to let you know exactly where we are, what the status of all the projects are for at least for FY22, and we can have some discussion about some of the other developments as well.
Thank you, Director. Thank you, Daniel. So I think we have called everyone who was signed up.
Excuse me, has Paulette Matthews' name been called? If it had, I didn't hear it because I'm moving about in the city.
Okay,
Ms.
Matthews.
High hasn't been called.
Okay, so Ms.
I'm
Matthews.
waiting to hear my name.
You're hearing your name now, Ms. Matthews. Go right ahead.
Hello, everyone. How y'all doing? First of all, I would like to say that each and every time I be on this board meeting situation, I always feel like y'all are still continuing to take us around the mulberry bush. As we sit here and ask questions, as we have gone to meetings, as we have spoke on many different occasions about the situations that we live in, I'm walking and talking. And so that Bill Slover, thank you for all that you do. And just like Miss E and Miss Frazier, who I've had several conversations with, God rest their souls, they were still fighting for the cause, and we're going to still continue to do that as well. The good thing about them was that they were able to make it back to the redevelopment from which they came. For a lot of us, we might not make it back before that happens because of the policies and the procedures that are set forth. They sit here and say that, this is going to be a community where we have all these different entities, I guess, living together, ownership, this, that, and the third, or whatever the case may be. And since sometimes they talk about being uniformed, and we're not. Communication is the key. And far as that after hour thing, far as these emergencies, that system has been messed up before they start outskirting it to Florida, Miami, and Tobago. All of that has been a problem. And as I feel, all of our rights have been violated because we sit here and speak. And then for the bills to keep getting pushed and passed by off of monopoly money while we sit here and try to figure out what we're going to do and how we're going to do it. Y'all have gone through this process so many times before, and you always come back and not deliver. Plenty of times we went into the meetings for Berry Farms, and that was always our main concern, the money. Where is it? Will you have it? I'm surprised to even hear that y'all can give out some guidelines and some time factors to when Park Morton is going to have this up and that up, and all y'all can tell us about is the senior building. Well, when we had that meeting and we said the senior building, we didn't know that y'all were going to, because seniors should come first, and we didn't know that y'all were going to deal with it in the manner in which you're doing so. We thought that you had the money, so therefore everything would have gone up. I actually wanted it to go up when they were building the Newberry Farms, that once it got put there, they act like we didn't even belong. But I want to get back to Ms. Donaldson and the conversation in which we had some months ago, and then at the last meeting, she was like she wasn't aware. Well, whether aware or not, the paperwork that I got on yesterday is actually with like more so the resolutions of all the things that we already have, and we keep that type of paper around us. So that's not good enough. What I was told, and what she was also told, and anybody that was on that meeting at that time when we had that call, that the trees built, and also, oh my goodness, I can't even think right now. But anyway, it doesn't matter. Her name probably will pop up in my head in a minute because I'm trying to catch my breath as I walk home. But they signed something that said that they could come back. When I got the paper yesterday, well, the little booklet I got yesterday, I saw nothing in it supposed to sign that they spoke of. So to me, it's like y'all take us for a joke. It's not April Fool's Day every day of the week and every time y'all have a board meeting. Y'all need to figure out how to do something better, because as you can see, that it's been a big mess. There's never enough money. You got to wait for it to come from Tom, Mary Ann, and everybody else while we still sit here. When we had the conversations, it's yes, we do. But you moved us out. Then you say you moved us out because of how we was living. It should have never got to that point. And it wasn't the residents that were doing it. It was the housing authority and whoever they contract or whatever who wasn't properly trained or didn't have enough money to be able to come and do what they need to do, or either buy cheap products or either do bandage work. So we go through what we go through while y'all go home and trying to figure it out, and still not yet has figured it out. And the buddy plan and the family plan has created a problem with all of our lives. All lives matter. Human rights matter. And
I think we lost Ms. Matthews. Ashanta, hi. Ms. Hi, are you there?
Hello. Yes, I'm here. Hello,
I would like for her to state about the letter.
So Ms. Matthews, your time is up. I'm going to ask the director to answer, but let's hear from Ms. High first, and then Director Don, I'm going to ask you to respond. Go right ahead, Ms. High.
Thank you. Hello, commissioners and Madam Director Donald. Thank you all, as always, for the opportunity to speak today, and taking just a moment of silence to respect Ms. Deborah Frazier. Thank you all, as always. Thank you. Psalm 62:10, put no trust in extortion, set no vain hopes on robbery. If riches increase, set not your heart on them, end quote. You cannot be okay with what is happening if you truly have a conscience. Can you really feel that modern day slavery is okay this day and age?
selling out your Black and brown families to the highest bidder. That's what we are to you. And for what? A measly 14.8 million bucks for a few bars, a gym, a metro, a bagel shop, and a pet sitting service? I'm absolutely squipped at how terribly Park Morton residents have been treated throughout this entire process, especially me as their president. Where's my pain and suffering out of that 14.8 million? Where's my mental anguish? 20 years of it I've suffered living here, and I get nothing. Y'all are going to make an investment in my family, my business, the Park Morton Equity Plan, and the future of the Park Morton residents, because the District of Columbia Housing Authority, the Deputy Mayor's Office for Planning and Economic Development, the New Communities Initiative, the Mayor's Office, and all the partners that were involved in the conspiracy of this whole thing owe my family. You owe our families, these residents. There won't be enough units for all of the people you've been promising that we can come back, even though deep down, y'all are hoping that a lot of them won't come back. Next, I want to speak on Resolution 2118, where you said, whereas the redevelopment of Park Morton includes the Bruce Monroe community as the build first site, phase 1, and the existing Park Morton public housing site as phases 2 and 3. The total program between both sites includes the development of approximately 462 units, including 147 replacement units. Approximately 27 replacement units have been provided at the Avenue Apartments in 2013 under the New Communities Initiative Redevelopment Plan, end quote. How is it possible for there to still be a build first site if the site in question has been remanded back to the zoning commission? That leaves Park Morton starting at phase 2 instead, literally shifting it to phase 1 of the footprint development based on the Park Morton Equity Plan. Since the selection of the quote unquote community partners, not a single viable unit of housing has been built. Now, residents such as myself are being forced from our homes. Now, construction is being accelerated. I want to go on the record to say that the part of Resolution 2118 that says, quote, whereas in order to move Park Morton redevelopment forward, planning shifted to begin on-site development at Park Morton prior to Bruce Monroe, end quote, is a flat out unadulterated lie. If it shifted, it did so without my knowledge, because the people who didn't want the residents here to have a stake in our equitable land met behind closed doors. To be sure, I was unaware.
Ms. Hadi,
I'm wrapping up right now, and I'm closing right now, Commissioner. 1 Corinthians 6:10, nor thieves, nor the guilty, nor drunkards, nor revilers, nor swindlers will inherit the kingdom of God, end quote. I am Shantae High, president of the council at Park Morton, and I bid you all adieu.
Thanks, Ms. High. Pat Bishop, I understand I overlooked you. Ms. Bishop. Let me turn it over to our executive director. I wanted you to respond to Ms. Matthews.
Yes, Ms. Matthews, I think you referenced a letter or a packet, and if I was following you correctly, I think that was the follow-up from a meeting we had actually this summer, and where with the Berry Farm allies, and then we had a subsequent meeting with the larger Berry Farm community where our staff said that everyone who had moved off site should have gotten a relocation packet that spelled out their rights. And several people, including you, I think, said that you had not gotten that. So I circled back to staff to make sure that they sent out whatever the original packet was. So I think that's what you received. And I'm not, is that what you're referring to?
But regardless, Brenda, I think somebody just needs to follow up with her after this meeting to make
Yes.
sure that she has all the information that she needs. So,
Okay.
So I want to take this opportunity to thank everyone for joining us for our meeting today. This concludes.
Neil, I had one question I wanted. One of the questions that Daniel asked of the director didn't answer. So I'm curious as to what the timeline is for the remaining replacement units at Arthur Capper Carrollsburg.
I don't know that.
Miss Jonathan, I didn't hear you.
Do you know how many
I was
units?
talking to someone in the rental office.
So Ms. Matthews, the Director Donald is going to get back to you after this meeting.
She said that before. She said that before.
No, but hold on. She's saying it again, and the board is going to hold her accountable to that. So thank you. Yes, Bill, can you ask?
Arthur Capper, I'm sorry, I haven't been briefed on that yet. I have a meeting coming up, so that will be one that will follow up with the board and give you an update.
Do you know how many units there are left?
I do not.
So just so you know, there's 234 units remaining. There were 707 to begin with. That's 33% of the replacement units. 20 years later, have not been replaced. 20 years. And so you wonder why we get concerned about the Park Mortons and the Berry Farms and all these other issues, because history has proven these are very challenging projects, and we have not executed in a way that has brought people back in a timely manner. So I don't know how we're going to get it done here because there's only a few sites left.
Well, the director is going to come back to us with updates and plans, and our role as a board is to pierce the veil of those plans and ask the question. So we look forward to that conversation, and hopefully that's happening sooner rather than later, Director.
Okay.
Great. All right. So thanks everyone for joining us today. Our Board of Commissioners meeting is adjourned. Our next board meeting will occur on November 10th, 2021 via WebEx. See you all next time. Thank you.
Bye.